Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming in a beautiful sunny Saturday morning to come and listen to me talk. It's a bit more interesting than stuff I've been doing over the last while. I've been spending a lot of time talking about this dreaded new piece of data protection legislation that I can't even bring myself to say anymore. So hopefully this will be slightly more interesting than discussing personal data, but we will still get some of that. I'm using a Google Slides thing today. Obviously, I decided to try out a new technology just while I was going to be speaking to nearly 100 people or whatever it is. So if it goes wrong, I have a PowerPoint version as well that I will be flicking onto, but you'll have to bear it in mind. But it does mean that there is a link at the top of every slide, Google/slides/blah blah blah blah, which you can where you can ask questions. So if there are any questions that you have, you can just go to that link, ask a question, and it should pop up on the thingamajig over there. I've never done that bit before, so again, we'll see how it works. So what I'm going to talk about is data insecurity in a cloud environment. We're going to touch on some topics about data protection. And then we're going to touch on some stuff about the technical side of things. And we're going to touch on some stuff about a case study about reporting cloud environment issues to organizations. And we're going to try and kind of discover what people should be doing and what we as developers, or you as developers and me as security testers, should be doing to help secure our stuff. So just a bit about me. I work for Vertical Structure. It's work for and is my company with my friend Mark. We do three things. We do prepare, protect, persist. We talk about prepare. We talk about training. So we go and help people learn how to break their own stuff. We teach people how to, through labs and active learning type environments, we teach them how to break their own stuff. We do protect, which is around breaking your stuff for you. So we come in and we break your applications and we tell you how we did it. And we talk about persist, which is all about thinking about information assurance and data protection. So things like ISO 27001, the ubiquitous GDPR assistance with compliance for that, and also around things like cyber essentials and stuff as well. So if you need any help with those sort of things, that's the sort of what we do. So over the last wee while, we've seen some examples of data exposure. This one's from 21st of May. Apple and Android IDs of more than 10,000 children were left unprotected on Amazon cloud servers for months, reports ZDNet. It was run on one server found by TeenSafe. Another one, Greenwich University fined £120,000 for a data breach. But it wasn't a data breach in that some clever hacker somewhere found how to root the Unix Django or whatever the local terminology might be. What it was is that there was a server that was left unprotected, and the server was just available through AWS, available to absolutely anybody. Sorry, let me just lost my mouse here. Wait. There we go. Sorry. Maybe didn't have any, proper DNS pointing to it, so you found out that it was like an ec2.blah.blah.blah.amazonaws.com or whatever it was. But there were still £120,000. They were fined £120,000 because there were 19,500 students' data placed online. There was some really sensitive data on there as well. So let's have a look at that. Names, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, signatures, and in some cases, physical and mental health problems. That doesn't sound like something that anybody wants to be exposed. A newer post recently from Brian Krebs, just from the beginning of this week. You can tell when I prepared some of these slides from the dates of the examples. But Google Groups leaking data. So there was a good example of Google Groups kind of pushing data, having insecure data being stored in it. There was also an example this week, I think it was this week or last week, of Trello. Which was being used by a lot of organizations to store passwords, usernames and passwords for some bizarre reason that I don't know. And then we've got things like this. Top secret NSA and Army data leaked online. Leaky buckets, the S3 buckets just being left open, and we're having lots of data. This was critical data belonging to the United States Army Intelligence and Security Command, INSCOM. It's, and had lots and lots of interesting bits and pieces on it. And then another one from this UpGuard company who are doing some fantastic stuff around exposing data. In here we've got that sensitive data from Los Angeles County 211 service was leaked. It includes 200,000 rows of detailed notes, graphic descriptions of abuse, suicidal distress, some cases phone numbers, addresses, and even instances of social security numbers. It also has the name of the person who phoned up to report the issue on the 211. So it's everything. It's all really nasty stuff that nobody should be releasing. And there are tools for us to identify this. There's tools like, there's this bucket finder, which has been released. And basically what it does is you give it a dictionary, give it the top 1,000 companies in the UK and Ireland, and it will go through and see if it can find any buckets that are associated with that company. Kind of change spellings and add dev and prod and all that sort of stuff on the end, and see if there's anything interesting that's sitting out there. We found this one that was sitting out there. This is last modified 4th the 7th, 17. Maybe that this one was meant to be out there. I quite like it as an example because there is there's a CFG key hidden in there, and some other useful information that is that's listed later on that I haven't actually displayed here. So basic mistakes are being made. So in the University of Greenwich example, we've got, as I say, phone numbers, signatures, in some cases physical and mental health problems. It was uploaded onto a microsite for a training conference in 2004 and was never removed. So that's information that is 14 years old that's been sitting there and just waiting to be exposed. From the 211, we've got access credentials for those operating the 211 system. So those are the people who are logging in to see and record the issues. And in these cases, as I say, we've got the people reporting the problem, the person's in need, and where applicable, their reported abusers. That is information that is not a good thing to get out. So why is this bad? Well, I promised I would mention it at some point, but we've got the GDPR fines being taken into account, and what they do is they take the enforcement for those fines. They take into account the gravity and duration of the infringement. Do we think that 14 years of insecure data sitting on a server somewhere is quite a long duration? I think yes. What do we think about the gravity? Well, we can see that there's quite a serious amount of data on there. Again, therefore, we're going to find ourselves in trouble. What did the organisation do to mitigate the damage? Well, they didn't shut the machine down. They didn't do anything really in this case. So the University of Greenwich in this case were fined 120,000. And if you've not done the basics, then a censure of some sort is more likely. And I've included the text of the ICO guidance. Now, if you want to, like me, you probably have the GDPR app installed on your phone, so you can reference any requirements as and when you need to. Would that be a fair assessment? No? Well, if you don't, you can download one, and then you will have all of the articles and recitals in your hand whenever you need to look up something interesting about GDPR. And then there's NSC guidance, so the National Cybersecurity Centre, which issues some fantastic guidance. If you don't follow them on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and all these bits and pieces, then you should. They offer some awesome advice, some awesome guidance. They have provided some technical guidance around the NCSC, around the GDPR, which is really useful for people to examine. So in here we've got managing. Their advice is to manage security risk, protect personal data against cyber attack, detect security events, and minimize the impact. So what what they want us to be able to do is, yes, protect the data, but also to be able to respond to that issue rather fast and to be able to do things about it. And I'm going to come back to that at the end when we talk about the case study as well. Their security outcomes document talks about evaluating the effectiveness of your security measures, including virus and malware scanning, vulnerability scanning, and penetration testing as appropriate. And you can record the results of testing and remediating action plans. So you should be performing testing on your environments, on your cloud environments, on everything that is anything to do with you, because it's very important for the information to be kept secure. So what happens? So what are we starting to see then? Well, Is anything sacred anymore? Well, if you've ever had a look at Showdown, I presume most people have had a play around or a look around at Showdown in some way, shape or form. It's quite a terrifying little tool that exposes the whole wide world. I have a paid account, so I can get to images.showdown.com. And if you've never seen this, these are screenshots of open RDP servers and VNC servers. So what it does, just goes out, tries to detect if something's open and listening, and then takes a screenshot of it and makes it available to the whole wide world. Also does it for webcams and CCTV. So if you're leaving your CCTV open to the world, then there's almost certainly an image of it in here somewhere. You can see here that somebody's using a CCTV camera to monitor some kind of valves and meters over here. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but there's also someone's car, and these are spread all the way around the world. It's fascinating. But yeah, so what Showdown does obviously is to scan the whole internet from zero to the very top, and it works out what's sitting on it, what information is available, and what we are all leaving open for the world to see. So if you scan, you just enter in, for instance, in here, I've entered in bbc.co.uk. And what that does, that provides us with information about servers that the BBC operates. It works very nicely for things like secure certificates, because we're all being so secure these days. We're all generating secure certificates with correct common names and correct origins, which means that if we want to know where a server sits that is belonging to one of your organizations, it becomes very easy for us to identify that. So as you can see here, it does a really nice breakdown. So it says United Kingdom, Ireland, United States, Germany, and it tells you where things are located. If we don't see Amazon on one of the searches that we're doing, then it's very, very surprising. So what else have we got? Well, we're going to bring these two things together in a wee second. Has anyone ever come across Elasticsearch? Used Elasticsearch? Yeah, great tool. Really, really useful tool. Brilliant for searching over large documents, sub-second returns of data. Elasticsearch it's based on Lucene in the back end. It is a really, really lovely full-text search engine with a brilliantly enabled HTTP web interface and schema-free JSON documents. It's really cool, and it can also be a right pain to work with, but it is a very, very cool piece of kit. But the issue that we have here is the access to the HTTP web interface. I should say that there is an Elasticsearch service in AWS, and what that allows you to do is in Amazon's true style, you don't need to know anything about it. You just set it up, press a button, and something gets booted up somewhere, and life gets very easy for you. The only access restrictions that it offers in this, the access restrictions that it offers in this case are resource-based, identity-based, or IP-based. So resource-based, you assign access to your Elasticsearch stuff through an account, a user, or a role, and it's applied to your domain. Identity-based, you can these tend to be more generic. The IAM stuff in AWS is one of the trickiest parts of AWS, so it's a bit difficult to discern the difference. But then there's also IP-based. Okay, and IP-based basically means that if you're on this IP address, you can access anything you want to do, and that can be really interesting to look at. So this has happened. We've seen some of these things before. So Elasticsearch, back in 2017, there was a company, Cromtech Security Center. They found 15,000 insecure Elasticsearch servers with 27% hosting Aligner and JackPOS, which are malware. And that we found some very similar things that a lot of the Elasticsearch servers that we're going to be looking at have got malware installed with them. And Elasticsearch plus Showdown equals sad face. That's what we're going to see. So, what was our methodology for looking into some of these pieces of data? Well, we used Showdown for understanding initial numbers. So just do a very basic search. Use their scanning technologies that they've already implemented for understanding initial numbers of Elasticsearch servers sitting out on the web, sitting out in the open. And then some basic interrogation of top 1,000 instances in a specific region in an export so that we can understand the cluster name, the health, the number of documents, the size of data, the index names, and the key names within the index. And then we used some machine stuff to understand the key name and to rate what we termed, we tried to come up with some fancy title for it, but we just called it interestingness. So I don't know if I should trademark that or not, but we have an interestingness scale. I'm sure Bolster would have a fancy data science word for it, but I don't have one, I'm afraid. So just some figures around what we saw when we just put in a search for Elasticsearch. We found that there are 44,313 open Elasticsearch servers sitting around the world, which is quite significant. 22,000 of which are in the United States, 5,000 in China, 3,000 in Ireland, and then it goes downhill from there. You can see that some people have put them onto different ports. You can see here that there's also 5601, which is, I believe, is Kibana, which is the beautiful graphical interface that sits on top of Elasticsearch. And again, you can see the top organizations. We've got Amazon.com, Hangzhou, Alibaba, Amazon, and Amazon Data Services. So there's one name that appears very much more than others in that list, and that's who we're going to take a look at. And you can see the operating systems and the versions as well. And the versions is very, very useful. Elasticsearch, like every piece of software, has issues and it has bugs. They have issues that they've presented. So these were the versions that were from the largest export of these. So we took an export of the 1,000 top hosts in the Irish region for Elasticsearch, and these were the versions that we found. So we found 601, 52, 622, 1.5.2. There were 10%, 11% of those were running 1.5.2. That is a very, very old version of that software. Very, very old, even in web terms. So just give you some ideas then. So version 5.5.2. End of life is around, end of life data is listed, and currently maintained is listed on the side there as well. So what can we see? Well, out of the 1,000 top hosts that we looked at, only 2 were currently under maintenance still. That's pretty bad. That means that we're starting to, that exploits for those may be available, that we might start to see data being compromised. We also found that there were significant amounts of AWS usage. So you can see in here that there were 821 versus 122 who were using AWS. One of the interesting things about this as well, the information that is given out from this presents back the AWS user ID to us. Okay? So the way that the Elasticsearch cluster is set up is it is Elasticsearch user ID : cluster name. So we then find out the top 1,000 Elasticsearch, the top 1,000 Elasticsearch users in the Irish region. Sorry, I've screwed this somehow. Hold on. There we go. So a lot of AWS usage. What about number of documents? Well, I was going to remove some outliers just to make the graph look a bit prettier. But you can see in here that in one instance we have, I think we had it as, I think the amount of zeros I'm right in saying is 4 billion documents in one of the systems. But we see an awful lot of documents right down the bottom here. Everywhere you go, there is a lot of data. Okay. And the amount of data. Remember again, this is in the top 1,000 hosts that we found only. Okay, this is and this is just in the Irish region. There were, in some cases, 6 terabytes of data in a single instance of Elasticsearch, which isn't great. Now, what are people using it for? Well, we'll have a look at that in a wee second. Potentially compromised hosts. So out of the ones that we were scanning, there were 298 potentially compromised and 645 that weren't. So 298 compromised. How do we know they're compromised? Well, what they do is we just do a very, very basic check to see if any of these index names appear. And if any of these index names appear, then we can presume that it's been compromised in some way, shape, or form. You can see here that we've got the Jackpos one that I mentioned earlier. We've also got please read this and read me. When you start to investigate those, you find out that they're either very nice people who are leaving those messages in the Elasticsearch clusters, or they're very, very nasty people leaving those messages in the Elasticsearch clusters. The first one, what they're doing, they leave a message in it and just says, please read me, your host has been compromised and it's open to the world, please do something about it. If you want some help, contact us and do that. And there's an email address. The second one says, we have downloaded all your data, we've encrypted the stuff that's on your Elasticsearch server, and we're now going to, and here's a Bitcoin address that you can use to pay us. And they do basic crypto, encryption exploits. And who doesn't love a word cloud? So I've decided to go back to the early noughties. And what we can see here is that Elasticsearch is the most popular cluster name within our compromised servers. What does that say to me? Well, as somebody who plays around with these things quite frequently, if it's called Elasticsearch, it is almost certainly just a cluster that has had very little care and attention paid to it, shall we say. So I've removed the word Elasticsearch, and let's have a look and see what else we find. So in here we can see that we've got a Docker cluster one, we've got a MyTest domain, we've got a data lake, we've got Sentinel. What we found was that there were a lot of things that were entitled dev and staging, but we also found quite a lot which contained the words production or prod or live and things like that. So what about some interesting clusters? Now it's difficult to kind of get everything on here, but this is some information which has been redacted, obviously. In here you can see that there is a membership details in here, $200 for 1 week in here. There is a QPay response, of which I've removed some of the transaction IDs and all that sort of stuff. So there's information there about payments that's going through, and they're all being stored in that system. What else do we have? Well, this is from a video-on-demand system that operates in some hotels mostly in England that we found. And this is somebody who's bought a movie in their room. Now, I've removed any personal information from this, but what you can find is that this person here on the 12th of the 1st, 2017, in this room with no name listed, bought We're the Millers, which is fine. This one here is less fine, and it shows a room number. There is more personal information down the bottom as well. It shows some adult movies that they've been purchasing. So that goes against their room, goes against their credit card, goes against their name. So is that the sort of thing that you want to have exposed to the world? There's some stuff here about, again, I've removed the information in here, but this is a receipt, signed receipt for an Apple transaction. So this is a payment that has taken place for a game on this system. There's a lot of logs. So some people are doing logging. So we found Apache logs in there. We found transaction logs, payment logs. We found logs from applications that shouldn't have been available on Tinternet. This one here, they tried to do something quite foolish that we always rail against. I have an article I'm waiting to post called Base 64 is not encryption, which has been written since about 1995 by lots and lots of different people, and nobody keeps paying attention. So I thought I'd jump on the bandwagon and write one as well. This here, basically what they do is they've encoded their message in the payload here with base 64 and then just released it into the world for anybody to see. Now, if that had been encrypted, that mightn't be so terrible, but this is base 64. It's not encryption. And all it took was a very basic extraction of the data to get it out. And then just lots and lots of logs of things like this, lots of crap, basically. There's an awful lot of nonsense in there, and getting through to the interesting stuff is the difficult bit. There's an Apache log as well. This actually came from you can see here I've put banking, I've removed the rest of it. This is a very, very well-known international bank with their sandbox details in there, and these are people making posts to different accounts and taking money from one place to another. Okay, these are all just live on the internet. So we found major brand names, we found broadcaster information. We found one that was an EPOS system, so that every time somebody bought something in one of the stores, this international firm, a request was logged in the Elasticsearch cluster. Online services, games providers, interesting index names. So there's one there called Inventory GDPR Dev, which is a bit terrible, isn't it? Non-specific name here, dash security logs. Interesting, we look out for words like that. Store app prod, and a few others. So you can see that there are a number of interesting bits. So when we found one of these, what we decided to do is we needed to report that issue. And one of the things that we found when we were doing that is that reporting an issue is very, very difficult to do. Okay? Reporting it nicely, reporting it correctly is a very tough thing to do. So on the Thursday, we discovered an issue. There were 500,000 personal data records being exposed to the world. Included name, home address, billing address, bank details, the service being provided, lots and lots of personal data. It was being added to at about 1,000 records a day as well. So it was just keep on going up and up and up. We were able to identify the owner as owner of the data as being a subsidiary of a major international company. Through the index name, we were able to locate that and find that sort of stuff out. This was on the Thursday. On the Friday, the data had increased by 1,000 personal records. We had emailed cert@thecompany.com. We had sent them a GPG signed mail so that they could at least get some assurance that we were who we said we were, with references back to our data. There was no response. On the Saturday, the data had increased by another 1,000 personal records. We emailed security@company.com. Again, GPG signed mail and unsigned mail, and just trying to get in touch with them, and no response. On the Sunday, we tried to go straight through to the support side of the organization. Again, no response whatsoever. Data had increased again by another 1,000 people, and still no information. Sort of information, this is the sort of email we were sending. I need to report a security issue and would like to confirm this is the right email address to report. I believe this needs to be resolved, and I understand they are a subsidiary of, and obviously I've moved stuff around. For verification of who I am, please take my LinkedIn profile, verify my GPG key, or use below contact details. And then where I got their contact information from. I think it's quite open, quite kind of, come and check out who I am and I'll help you to fix this. And also not saying, I'll help you fix this if you pay me $5,000. You know what I mean? It's not one of those sort of issues. This is please fix this, it's causing problems. On the Monday, we identified that one of the people I know, who's a very lovely chap, got hold, that he had a mutual connection with somebody in the company that we needed to get hold of. I was able to form a connection with him. 5 minutes later, I was chatting to him, and I said, just to confirm, this is your company. And he said, yes, this is part of us. I sent him the details. He got me, and within 5 to 10 minutes, the hole was closed, and it was gone. By the Tuesday morning, when I checked, the cluster was down, everything was gone, and it was all sorted out. We then took part in a post-mortem with the company to identify the flaw. So we helped them, and we said, we actually took a lot of legal advice before reporting and doing all that stuff and working with them. But one of the things was that we helped them to see how we had discovered the flaw and what they should have been doing differently. But that's a long time. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's 6 days, potentially, of that data being out there. 6 additional days. And what did we learn about reporting? Well, large companies, very large companies in this case, are not great at opening communication channels. The key to opening communication channels is trusted friends and partners. In some cases, it's not worth doing the investigation. It cost us a few £100 in solicitor's fees, which was worth it for the protection. You can find yourself on the wrong side very easily. It can be very daunting to report something. So what can we do? Well, we can start to make it easier. You can use things like security.txt. I'll show you an example in 10 seconds' time. You can make sure you've got security at addresses or cert at addresses or contact us for a security flaw at company.com or something. You've got to make sure that that's in place. So what can you guys as developers do? Well, you can test your access privileges to cloud services as part of your process. Don't trust the fact that because it's in the cloud, it's secure. It's not. It's just, it's worse, if anything. Think about the NCSC guidance I mentioned earlier. Read through that and think about how your company hits each one of those. Do you manage your security risk? Do you protect your personal data? Do you detect security events and do you minimize the impact? You can use some security features available to you. And you can implement things like this security.txt that I spoke about before. This is ours. So on our site, you can see hello@verticalstructure.com. Here's the GPG key. Here is the signature. So you can send us an email and tell us what is wrong with our stuff. Just around the AWS side of things, cloud is not equal to secure. Some basic steps: use IAM and role-based authentication where possible. If not, think about restricting your IP access. Verify your access, test it and test it again. Use tools like guard duty in AWS. Use the stuff that's available to you. And remember, in AWS, when you say everyone has access, it means everyone. It doesn't mean just the people in your company, it means everyone. I have put my slides up on Noticed, and all the resources that I talked about in there, all the links and all that sort of stuff, they're all available on that second one, NI DevConf Talk. It should have been automatically published as I started talking. So if you would like to see the slides again or you have any questions, you can get through to me on that. I haven't had time to take any questions from here. I don't know if anybody had... Thank you, Stevie. I'm actually out of time, but can I come and... I'll come and stand at the back or outside there, and if you have any questions, you come and give me a shout, because he's going to boot me off stage.